Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have a widespread rain warning issued across England and Wales throughout Saturday evening into Sunday, as we are going to see some torrential rain and the risk of some severe thunderstorms as well, as the cut-off low you can see on the map at the moment sat to our south is slowly nudging northwards, and it's going to bring all this torrential rain and thunderstorms in over the course of the next 12 hours or so. We'll look at that in detail with the latest UKV and Arome runs, which have got some small differences but are in agreement that it is going to be an exceptionally lively evening. As we head into next week, things are going to be turning a little bit more settled than what we've got tonight, but it is going to remain showery with some longer spells of rain. But the big difference will be the temperatures. We're going to see a period of about 5 to 8 degrees below average in terms of the upper air temperatures, which will feed through to those surface temperatures. And for many, this week has felt fairly summery. Even those in the south, which have seen a lot of rain, it has felt a little bit muggy and humid. Next week though, wind direction in from the northwest, it is going to be feeling a lot cooler and a lot more autumnal for all, as we do bring in the coldest air mass we've seen in probably about 4 months or so. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link is in the description. Now, to start on the live radar, you can see it is generally a dry picture at the moment. A few showers breaking out across northern England and some more persistent rain across the far south coast, but this isn't really nudging too far inland at this stage. It's really throughout the latter part of the afternoon into the evening that we do start to see this really shift northwards, and it's this rain here across much of central and northern France that is going to be moving in. And you can see at the moment it is a large area of pretty torrential rain with some embedded thunderstorms, and it's likely to remain with this nature as it does start to move in from the southeast. There is some uncertainty exactly how intense it will be through this evening and where it stalls and pivots tomorrow, because that's the thing about this low. It is moving in and not completely clearing in sort of one linear track. It's moving in, stalling, and then moving away through Sunday evening. So that means for some, this area of rain, these larger areas of persistent rain, are gonna stall, and that means there could be a lot of rain through tomorrow. The areas that we're looking at the moment are northwest England, the West Midlands and southwest England, where that weather front will stall, and to the east of that, where we've got some slightly clearer skies, a bit of a drier slot, we could see some more isolated scattered thunderstorms breaking out. So yeah, it could be very lively this evening and could remain lively through much of Sunday. Now, do you put on the temperatures at the moment? It is still warm, especially for northern areas. The warmest areas are actually East Anglia, much of northern and western England, Northern Ireland, much of the Republic of Ireland, and western Scotland. The wind direction is coming in from the east. That's why it's slightly chillier the further eastwards you go, apart from here across the East Anglia, where we've got quite a short sea track, so it means that air isn't cooled down as much. Whereas further northwards with a longer sea track with fresh North Sea sea surface temperatures, even though they are kind of the warmest they're going to be this time of year, they are still fresher than the air mass, and that's why it's cooler along the east coast. Don't see that impact further westwards, and that's why it's so much warmer here. Again, low to mid 20s today, and you can see why this rain is going to be so heavy. We're drawing in all this hot, humid air across Central and Eastern Europe, where we are seeing pretty insane heat for the time of year, well into the 30s for these areas, and that is just going to fuel the rain and the storms over the coming hours. Now, do look at the weather warnings. The Met Office have got a blanket rain warning issued. Again, these warnings are better when they are succinct and easier to communicate to the public. So we've got a blanket rain warning, even though the sort of impacts we're going to see within this area could vary significantly. As I said, further south and eastward you go, more likely to be thunderstorms. The further westwards and northward you go, the more likely it is just to be persistent torrential rain. You can see it's covering majority of England, avoids the far north and northwest, and avoids the far north and west of Wales and the far tip of southwest England, but most other areas across England and Wales are encompassed in this warning. Now, if you look at the further details, it comes into force 9 p.m. this evening and expires 6 p.m. tomorrow, so a long warning time. And you can see it's for areas of heavy, possibly thundery rain, may cause flooding and disruption in parts of England and Wales on Saturday. So that description there is quite wishy-washy. Some areas are going to see thunderstorms, some areas are just going to see persistent rain, and there's some areas could see a mix. It's going to be very varied, as we'll see from the raw precipitation charts in a minute. You can see, whilst there remains some uncertainty with exact details, areas of heavy and at times thundery rain are expected to spread north, then west across England and Wales from this evening and overnight. These areas of heavy rain may become more persistent across western areas during Sunday. As I said, western areas where it could stall and persist, while slow-moving heavy showers and thunderstorms are likely further east in that drier slot. Rainfall amounts will vary considerably across the warning area, some seeing less than 10 millimetres, that's still a soaking, still great for the gardens, but others will see 40 to 60 millimetres, so multiple inches of rain, which could cause flooding issues, especially for those areas further southwards which have already seen 50 to 100 millimetres in the past 2 or 3 days. And there's also a lower chance that a few spots could see 80 to 100 millimetres of rain by the end of Sunday, which could fall in a small period of time. Those are the areas that can see the torrential rain move through initially and then see those thunderstorms develop behind. And you can see, given this region has also seen a lot of rain since Thursday, impacts may be more likely than would be normally expected this time of year. So again, because of all that rain that has fallen. You see medium impact, low likelihood. I'm surprised that it's not either higher impact or higher likelihood, because I do think there is a possibility and a plausibility of an amber warning being issued, especially in this southern portion here, because of the amount of rain that's fallen recently. So it's exacerbated by how wet the ground is. But of course, that could be something that does come into force later on today when we have got a clearer picture exactly what is moving in. Because it is a lot of convection, there is a certain nowcast to this, and that's why these warnings can be a bit wishy-washy, because we can't really say exactly what we will see in exact locations, because there is a lot of variability in the convective nature of these systems. But if we try and do our best, we'll head over to the latest UKV and see what that is showing this afternoon. You can see there is persistent rain across the south coast at the minute, but as you can see, it's not really shifting too much northwards throughout the rest of today. It's in that southeast corner though, we start to see thunderstorms pushing in, and you can see they start to edge further northwards and westwards, and you can see reinforcements arrive from the southeast. Now you can see here, it's not as much a wall of thundery rain, it's more fragmented, which is a bit of a change to what we saw yesterday from this run, and what we'll see from the Rome run in a minute, which does show a more succinct, organised line of torrential rain and thunderstorms. So already a little bit of a deviation there between these short-range runs. UKV, still very intense, just a bit more fragmented, with local areas seeing not too much, whereas the Rome is a lot more succinct, as we'll see in a minute, with an organised area of thunderstorms. Now, as we head through the evening, we continue to see lots of heavy rain pushing in from the east, even for northern and eastern areas, and out of the warning zone, seeing a lot of significant rain here. Northwest England, not in the warning zone, but here, seeing some thundery rain. So again, a lot of uncertainty about the positioning. Maybe these warnings need to be adjusted if this comes to fruition. So you can see through the rest of Sunday, it stalls for western areas. It's a bit further westwards than I anticipated, more towards Wales and southwest England. Again, almost outside of the warning zone. So perhaps this UKV run is a little bit anomalous, because that's not what we're seeing from the Rome, as we'll see in a minute, and not what we're seeing from the weather warnings. So perhaps this UKV has just shifted everything slightly further north and westwards. So again, we'll have to wait and see. But you can see to the east, lots of heavy thunderstorms breaking out through the afternoon, and you see through the evening, it eventually all clears away. And then by Monday, we go into a northwesterly flow, and you see it's not too bad through Monday, but it's a lot fresher. And then you can see more heavy showers and lines of rain arriving from the northwest, and even a bit of snow over the Highlands of Scotland, which is pretty remarkable for this time of year. Maybe late September, but early September, off the back of 20 plus degrees this week in those areas. That's going to be a big change indeed, but it's all because we got this very cold air mass moving in from the northwest, and you see it's a typical showery regime. And I know it's not April, but it's that sort of conditions. It's like April showers. So we've got a cold air mass over warm ground, and it allows lots of these heavy convective showers to break out. It wouldn't even be surprised to see a few thunderstorms and hailstorms within this as well. That's a sort of typical April showers regime. So that will be coming next week. Now, if you look at the upper air temperatures, you can see it is very warm and hot at the moment, but that will be losing its intensity over the next 36 hours with that cold front sweeping through from the northwest on Monday. It is going to bring in much cooler, fresher conditions, and you see by Tuesday into Wednesday, a much colder air mass moving in, as said, around 8 to 10 degrees below average, so really quite chilly indeed, and even more reinforcements of very cold air on Thursday. So UKV very much on board with hot, humid conditions right now. A complete 180 come next week with the upper air temperatures 20 degrees lower in some areas. Now, do we also have a look at the Cape levels for the upcoming 36-hour period? You can see moderate amounts through the rest of this afternoon, but really picking up overnight, some oranges and reds, and even some pinks appearing, so real high levels of Cape along this area of low pressure, this cut-off low that moves in. And you see the rotation within it, showing you the centre of the low there is just parked to our southeast, slowly edging in and then eventually clearing out to our northeast through Sunday evening. If you look at the max temperatures, just to finish off from the UKV, this afternoon, widely high teens, low to even mid-20s, another very warm, humid day. But as we head into tomorrow, it will still be humid in places, but it will be turning cooler, 22, 23 maybe at best. And it's really into Monday where it turns a lot fresher for all, 17, 18, 19 at best. And then into Tuesday, much fresher, 16, 17 in the southeast, and then widely low double digits or high single digits further northwards. And then into Wednesday again, 15, 16 degrees at best. And I wouldn't be surprised for Thursday being a bit colder than that. And look at that, 3 a.m, 4 to maybe 8 degrees. So a really quite cold night there for early September. But again, it's the sign of the times. It is turning chillier. It's inevitable. We are heading through autumn in towards winter, but I think it's going to be that shock factor from 25 degrees, 28 degrees in places this week to maybe only 12 degrees in the same areas next week, with temperatures down towards the mid to low single digits overnight. Now, if you go over to the Rhone run to have a look at the next 36 hours here, you can see we've got that rain in the far south throughout the rest of this afternoon, slowly edging northwards, and then look what happens from the southeast around the 9, 10 p.m. points. That's probably the only positive from this. A lot of the significant rain will be falling overnight, but then look at this, a big wall of heavy torrential thundery rain moving in from the southeast. These darker reds and browns showing the precipitation rate up towards 40, 80 millimeters per hour in places, and that's why the Met Office has stated some areas could see 100 millimeters for the whole event as these very significant bands move through. And you see it eventually pivots and stores, as said, in Wales and the West Midlands, and then thunderstorms take off further eastwards throughout the rest of the day with higher levels of Cape once again. So you can see it's a much more organised band of torrential rain and storms than the UKV showed. It is stalled in the west, but nowhere near as far west as the UKV showed, about 50 miles further eastwards probably, and then you can see that it eventually does clear. One thing that is the same from the Arome and the UKV though is the rain further north and westwards. We don't have the weather warning covering that through Sunday, so I would be surprised if that didn't get extended further northwards and westwards. We are seeing some quite heavy persistent rain. Maybe the Met Office has judged that these areas haven't seen a lot of rain over the past week, therefore these more moderate pulses of rain by the time it reaches these regions will not cause warning level impacts. And that could be a real possibility. As you can see, the very heavy rain does lose its intensity as it heads north and westwards. Does persist through Sunday, but loses its intensity. So perhaps waiting that, the Met Office have concluded that no warning needs to be issued in these areas. Maybe it does. We'll have to wait and see throughout the next sort of 12 to 24 hours. or so. But regardless, both runs showing very significant conditions tonight, especially for those areas in the south that's in significant rain, and those areas in the east that could see those initial severe thunderstorms and then more storms through Sunday. Make sure you do stay safe, as it, as I said, could be very lively indeed. Now, to finish this video by looking at the longer range, we've had a very similar picture, not too much shifting around over the past few days in terms of those longer term prospects. It's looking cooler and more unsettled. You can see that very cold north and northwesterly wind arriving for much of next week, and yeah, it looks pretty chilly and unsettled. The only change we're starting to see is perhaps beyond that, day 10 and beyond. You still see it's westerly, but more of a flat westerly, so turning milder again. But we are seeing perhaps, right in the extended range, high pressure shifting up from the south, which could bring a return to drier, warmer conditions. Again, we're unlikely to see anything that we've seen this week, and that's because those upper air temperatures are running out of steam. That heat is running out of steam. See, the 15-degree isotherm is retreated back towards Spain and Portugal and back towards the southern tips of the Mediterranean or even North Africa, whereas at the moment it's spread across much of northern Europe. So it just shows you that that heat is moving away, and it means that seeing high 20s or even mid 20s is becoming significantly more difficult over the next few weeks. Another thing that could come at play is look out to our west. An ex-hurricane there out in the North Atlantic. Again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Of course, we saw Eduardo move through a couple of weeks ago. That did look like it could be a pretty severe system. By the time it arrived, it was more of a generic low-pressure system, so didn't see anything too severe with that, but can't say the same for another system. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. If you do look at the GM, broadly similar, low pressure heading up from the south, that north and northwesterly wind over the coming hours, and then we do see, north to northwesterly wind next week, and then towards day 10, more of a flat westerly, but again, you can see that extension of the Azores high a little bit more, and that could allow for more drier, warmer conditions further southwards. Again, no guarantees. All you need is the jet stream to shift slightly further southwards, and that's completely cancelled, but perhaps signs around that day 10 point of something maybe drier taking over once again. If you compare finally to the ECMWF, again, low pressure heading up from the south, north to northwesterly winds arriving through early to middle of next week, pretty chilly for a number of days, and then more of a flat westerly, and then eventually towards day 10, again, a pretty strong signal for high pressure to build back in. So yes, turning colder next week, but might only be a blip for 3 or 4 days for warmer, dry conditions do return. September is a month of change, and does it like from these latest runs, it could be very up and down indeed. From summer thunderstorms 1 week to cold northwesterlies the next, and then back to something summery and dry once again. And here from the ECMWF, upper air temperatures are not amazing, but maybe getting towards the double digits, and that could equate to temperatures more around the high teens or low 20s, which doesn't sound amazing, but for late September or middle to second half of September, that's not too bad at all. Anything really into the low to mid 20s, maybe even higher than that in October, are those sort of extreme conditions that we normally call an Indian summer. So we're not too far away from that, if we're being completely honest. We'll have to wait and see how it does develop. But yes, not great next week, but positive developments perhaps for the week after that. And if we do finish by looking at the ensembles, warm at the moment, but losing its intensity over the coming days as we do see the low pressure system clearing to our east. Lots of heavy, significant rain over the coming hours. Lots of these spikes in the tens of millimetres. And again, it does look like really lively conditions over the next 24 hours. Temperatures do drop away next week to pretty chilly conditions indeed, well below average, about 8 degrees below average for about 3 or 4 days before we trend back towards average, and a bit of a drying trend in the long term, which again looks pretty decent indeed. And then if we finally compare to the ECMWF, it's broadly very, very similar. Lots of rain over the next couple of days, big drop in temperatures next week, showery conditions, but cold, returns towards average by the middle of the month, and then stays around average or above average and turns a bit drier. So it does look like there's going to be some very varied conditions over the next couple of weeks, but in the short term, lots of thunderstorms, lots of significant rain. So make sure you stay safe out there, and make sure you do keep an eye on those warnings, as I'm sure they will be updated over the next sort of 12 to 24 hours or so. As I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.